Blessed be all my people out there. In this video, we are going to be addressing the question, are there consequences for any kind of more combative, energetic, spiritual, alchemical, or magical activity? And this is a good question to answer, especially since we're kind of on a kick right now this last few weeks of talking about things like hexes, curses, and spiritual attacks and spiritual warfare. And when we talk about things like consequences and repercussions, now we're talking about the realm of blowback, lashback, karma, or, for some spiritual paths, it could be the rule of three or the law of this or the law of that. And it's actually a very interesting topic to get into because, of course, there are a lot of different spiritual paths out there that have their own interpretations of what is and is not a consequence, and what you need to understand about, what you might need to be ready for if you are to engage in something that could be maybe a bit iffy on the magical, spiritual, or even on the mundane. In short, consequences and repercussions, yes, do happen, but what those consequences and repercussions are can usually be filtered into one of two categories, sometimes both. So the first consequence has to do with the very energy that you are embodying, that you are calling in, and that you are bringing to work your will or to exist even in yourself or in your life as you are going about your work or your life. So if there is, say, a situation where a person is calling in a lot of destructive or chaotic or unstable or volatile energy into their life, whether this is something that they are doing for themselves or they are doing for their space or they are doing to direct at another person, they are still calling it through themselves and their world. And that energy will, of course, take its toll on that person and their world as it is going to do its work. Now, not all spiritual attacks, hexes, curses, and psychic activity operate that way, but there are plenty that do. And we have to also remember that this does apply as well to what we consider mundane activity and mundane interactions as well. Even things as simple as conversations, whether it's online or offline, how we express, how we emanate, what we are raising up and what we are rippling out. Because, of course, when we talk about magic or we talk about energy or spirituality or the universe as a whole, there are laws of physics and metaphysics that, very much as a force of nature will get down to work and get down to business. And so a lot of times, consequences that people are dealing with actually have to do with the fact that they are still, in a way, embodying or holding on to the very attack, curse, volatile energy, chaotic energy, or destructive forces that they raised up or generated within themselves to do that work. The other category has to do with balance, and keeping a balance and a response to a change in balance. And so you've probably heard me mention or again kind of quote and call back to, say, the law of equivalent exchange, which I think is a very, very cool, very, very efficient way to talk about this topic. Equivalent exchange actually is one of those really cool principles and assertions that actually came up from the Muses through Full Metal Alchemist, but there are plenty of cases and plenty of traditions out there that still refer to equivalent exchange in other terms in order to discuss this part of the phenomena. Basically, it's, all right, the universe will, of course, always be responding to changes in balance and changes in what is in existence in a given space, in a given period, around a given person. And the universe is always pushing for balance and harmony within itself, very much like nature. And on occasion, on consistent occasion, I should say, there will be times where things that are out of balance or out of the realm of equivalent exchange go through a process of adjustment and correction in order to create a new balance. But it is during that process where consequences also occur. Now, I'm not talking so much about, again, moral judgments in this video. Maybe we'll talk about that another time. But there's also a tentative third category in where consequences can come from. And that does have to do with what you might call judgment that could be coming, not necessarily from cosmic middle managers, making sure everyone gets their fair share or make sure they get their fair consequences. I think if you look out at the world, you can see that that doesn't happen very often. But there is a more of a judgment, or I guess you could say an arbitration that can happen when it comes to guides, when it comes to deities. This person's guides and deities versus this person's guides and deities. This person's, divine entourage, so to speak, may actually have something to say about what you are doing, and vice versa. In another video, for instance, I was talking about the repercussions that can come from, say, domination love spells that are intended to control another person's free will and their ability to kind of think and do for themselves. And how there have been instances even that I've observed with people who practice that kind of magic where their relationship is constantly under fire because the guides and the deities of, let's say, the man who had the love spell put on him are trying to get him back on his path. And that can create a lot of craziness in that situation. Those guides and those ancestors and those deities were like bringing in all kinds of situations that would break the relationship up because that love spell pulled him off his path. So sometimes that will happen as well. But for the most part, it's going to be around the discussion of, again, what kind of energy is getting drummed up and what kind of energy is being held and for how long. And then the other is this something that is in the realm of equivalent exchange, balance, and proportion? Now, when it comes to this kind of thing, I have the same rule for magic as I do for life. Be good or good at it. If you have to fight, and sometimes you do, make sure that you are dealing with things accurately, as in you are taking what you need to take to the appropriate sources and the appropriate subjects of your issue, and that you are only giving what is in equivalent exchange for what you are trying to change. Most people who fail in this respect are the types of people who tend to disproportionately curse, throw, attack, or blow up on anybody and everything over the slightest little thing. And those people are not cut out for doing this well. It's not even about whether you're good or bad ethically. It's more about competence. And that to me is incompetence. That is somebody who is incompetent when it comes to control of their faculties. Do not, for instance, if you have an issue with regards to a situation that may call for a curse or a hex or a return to sender or a banishment or a binding, you better know, you better know who you are doing that to and for what reasons and for what purpose. And you better know it clearly. If you don't know, then you better entrust the spell to a guide or a deity that is a part of your entourage, that is a part of your team, and simply say, please make sure that this deals with my adversary, my enemy, my true adversary or enemy in this situation. When you go out as a belligerent mess and you just decide to start hexing and cursing and blasting everybody in sight, you are the one who deservedly is going to probably have a lot to answer for. Just not necessarily even on a moral level. Sure, a lot of their guides and their deities might come after you, but you have to take responsibility for the fact that you're a part of magical physics. You're a part of spiritual physics. If somebody says something that ticks you off online, say you're in a message board and somebody says something, or you watch a video and somebody says something, or you're in a classroom and somebody says something, and it ticks you off, you do actually, funny enough, if they did something to you personally, if that was something personal and it was a very real and true attack on you, you technically do, even on a magical physics level, have the leeway and the space to, without consequence, respond. You do. But if you decide that you're going to also make that person, your ex-husband, your daughter, and the bully from your first job, and just take your whole day or your whole life out on somebody because they're there, you're the one who is then, you've gone above and beyond, right? You've decided instead of an eye for an eye, you're going to go for an eye and a limb. No. That is where you get into trouble. That is where spiritual brathood starts to really show its trashy teeth. You don't want to go there. What is better is a bit of grace, personally, in that kind of situation. If somebody says something that I don't like, or I get irritated, I think it's better to just, have a bit of grace, or even give the benefit of the doubt if you don't know if this was something that was actually meant for you. I think that, a bit of grace, a bit of wisdom, a bit of forgiveness, even if it's something that was a slight, but it's something livable, can also be good. For myself, I think that hexing and cursing and all of that kind of stuff, it's really only appropriate if you're already under a real, personal, verifiable attack. And say, for instance, if that is something going on either on the mundane or not. I think if you're just going on a vengeance trip, or you need to find something to vomit all your ventables in, you are the problem. You've probably been a bigger problem for more people than they've been for you. I make it a point not to ever be that way. But when people go out of the bounds of equivalent exchange, that is where there is a very real invitation for consequence. But no, there's not always going to be a negative consequence for a curse or a hex. In fact, actually, I've had situations where I've hexed and cursed on behalf of somebody, and I've had their deities, I've had their guides, I've had their loved ones on the other side even reward me with things like, hey, thank you. Thank you for protecting my daughter. Thank you for helping my son get away from, or whatever. Interestingly enough, there can be times where you are participating in actually making a better balance. But you don't want to assume you're always doing that. You want to make sure that you are very clear in what you're doing, and you're doing things with purpose and intent, and that you are staying within the realm of equivalent exchange, and it is always situation proportionate and appropriate. And you don't have to. That's the other thing. Grace, forgiveness, patience, and mercy are also fine alternatives in situations where that grace, patience, and mercy isn't leaving the door open to more problems. If you are going to get into the realm of psychic attacks and curses and hexes, then you need to make sure that you are always staying situationally aware, and that you are only doing those things when they are most needed. Most of my curses and hexes are just tripwires anyway for people who either have or intend to turn me into the receptacle of their bullshit. And I'm kind of like, no. In fact, I got a better idea. How about I hold on to all this negativity that you just sent to me? We'll wait a week or two, and then we'll throw it at you when you need it most. That's kind of my way of doing things. Or energy vampires, psychic vampires. All right, you want to come and drain me, you want to come and suck all this energy out of me, fine. I'm going to create this tripwire spell. And the second you need that energy for your date or your relationship or for your next job interview or your promotion opportunity, I'm going to make sure that that energy comes right back to me, and it stays within the bounds of equivalent exchange. I don't do it that often because, getting addicted to that kind of stuff can turn into petty bitchery really quickly. But sometimes it is necessary if you're dealing with toxic people that unfortunately may require a little bit more extremity in order to get them out of your life or to disable them from doing any more harm in your life. But if you are going to do this kind of thing, you've got to know, again, equivalent exchange, proportion, fairness, and making sure you're keeping your energy right when you're done and before. So just a bit of advice for anybody looking to explore that path further. And if you have any questions about this, or you'd like me to maybe extrapolate on something that I mentioned, please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. You all take care, and I will see you all again soon.